The most expensive Mercedes on earth is not some modern hypercar, not some overstyled billionaire toy, and definitely not a car built to impress people outside a steakhouse. It's the 1955 Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR Uhlenhaut Coupé, and one of the only two ever made changed hands for 135 million euros. That is not expensive. That is, the museum trustees start sweating expensive. The car was basically a road-going version of Mercedes's racing technology from the W196 era, powered by a 3.0-liter straight-8 with desmodromic valve gear, fuel injection, and a lightweight space frame. In period, it was good for around 290 kilometers per hour, which made it one of the most absurdly fast road cars on the planet. What makes it legendary is that it was not just engineered by Rudolf Uhlenhaut, it was actually used by him. And that's where the myth really kicks in. This thing was not built as some soft, leather-lined grand tour. It was basically a race car that accidentally became road legal. The only real downside is that if you tried to use it like a normal car, it would make every normal car around it feel like office furniture. And because only two were built and Mercedes kept them locked away for decades, collectors don't see this as a car. They see it as the Mona Lisa with gullwing doors. The money from the sale was also directed into a Mercedes-Benz scholarship fund, which only added even more weight to the story. Then, you get the 1954 Mercedes-Benz W196 R Stromlinienwagen, the streamlined silver Arrow that sold for 51,155,000 euros. This was not just a Grand Prix car. This was Mercedes showing up in the 1950s and announcing, in the most German way possible, that it intended to crush the field with engineering. The enclosed body was built for ultra-fast tracks like Monza, where reducing drag mattered more than making the car look friendly, which, to be clear, it absolutely did not. This thing looks like it was designed in a wind tunnel by people who hated compromise. And the provenance is ridiculous. Chassis 00009/54 was driven by Juan Manuel Fangio to victory in Buenos Aires, then driven by Sterling Moss at Monza, where it set fastest lap. It is also one of only 4 known complete examples with the factory streamliner body. That is why collectors go feral over it. It combines Formula One dominance, Silver Arrow's mythology, Fangio, Moss, and museum-grade preservation in one object. The flaw? Same as many historic race cars. It was built to win, not to care about your comfort, your knees, or your opinion. Next is the 1936 Mercedes-Benz 540K Special Roadster, one of the definitive pre-war luxury monsters. One example sold for $11.77 million, and honestly, that number makes sense the second you look at it. This car was Mercedes at its most unapologetically extravagant, a 5.4-liter supercharged straight-8, vacuum-assisted hydraulic brakes, hand-built coachwork, and proportions so dramatic they make modern luxury cars look timid and over-optimized. The high-door, long-tail Special Roadster is the version collectors really lose their minds over because it is one of the most beautiful things Mercedes ever built. But let's be honest, subtle it is not. The 540K has the vibe of old money walking into a room and expecting everyone else to shut up. It was built in an era when carmakers were not trying to save weight, simplify interfaces, or respect packaging efficiency. They were trying to create rolling aristocracy. That is exactly why it matters. The best examples are incredibly rare. Top concours judges adore them, and one of these even won Best of Show at Pebble Beach in 2023. If the Uhlenhaut is Mercedes's rarest weapon, the 540K is its most elegant flex. Then, there's the 1908 Mercedes 17.3-liter 150 horsepower Brookland Semmering Rennwagen, which sold for $8.255 million. This thing comes from the prehistoric era of motorsport, when race engineering was basically one brutal idea: make the engine bigger and hope nobody dies. Mercedes built it as a one-off factory competition machine for the Semmering Hill Climb, one of the hardest events of its time. It won Semmering in 1908 and 1909 with Otto Salzer, later took third at the 1909 Champion du Monde with Camille Janazzi, and in 1909 Mercedes gave it a believed unique 17.3-liter engine because apparently too much had not been invented yet. And that's why this car is so valuable. It's not refined, it's not graceful, it's basically a mechanical fist from the dawn of racing. Chain drive, gigantic engine, terrifying proportions. This was motorsport before safety became a concept and before aerodynamics became a science. The reason collectors obsess over it is simple. It's a surviving fossil from the age when racing still looked half genius, half madness. You are not buying a car like this because it is beautiful in the normal sense. You are buying it because it is one of the earliest pure expressions of speed at any cost. And finally, the Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing, especially the ultra-rare Alloy Gullwing. This is the car that turned Mercedes into something more than a builder of stately luxury sedans. The 300 SL debuted in New York in 1954, largely because importer Max Hoffman pushed Mercedes to build it for the American market. It used a tubular space frame, which is exactly why the famous Gullwing doors existed in the first place. The sills were too high for normal doors. So yes, one of the most iconic door designs in automotive history was born partly because conventional packaging said, absolutely not. The car also used Bosch fuel injection, making it the first series-produced four-stroke passenger car with petrol injection, and with 215 horsepower, it became one of the fastest production cars of its era. The standard steel body cars are already hugely valuable, with strong public sales reaching around $2.04 million, but the real prize is the Alloy Gullwing. Only 29 were built, and these were the lightweight, competition-flavored versions for serious privateers. One sold for $6.825 million in 2022, and a more recent example sold for $9.355 million in 2024, which shows just how hard the market chases the very best ones. The only real flaw? Getting in and out of one gracefully is almost impossible unless you're part gymnast, part contortionist. But that's also why people love it. The 300 SL is not just collectible, it's the blueprint for the modern supercar, and the alloy version sits right at the top of that pyramid.